You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. Could understanding your own design help you release emotional blocks? Find out more in today's episode. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. In this episode, we explore how blending emotional freedom techniques with human design can help us release limiting beliefs and build emotional resilience. By tailoring these methods to each individual, this approach helps us find inner balance and the confidence to pursue our unique paths with energy and purpose. Laurie Anne Santos from Life Coach Laurie is an advanced EFT therapist, certified co-creative and co-active coach, and human design guide with over 22 years of experience. She combines emotional freedom techniques with human design to create extremely customized sessions that enhance mental, emotional, and relational health. Laurie began her career as a United States Probation Officer in the San Francisco Bay Area, but for the past 17 years, she has lived as an expat on 4 different continents. She currently resides on a small Dutch island in the south of the Netherlands with her Dutch husband. Laurie specializes in working with heart-centered creatives and solopreneurs, particularly those in the startup phase. Laurie helps her clients with self-regulation, releasing limiting beliefs, and building the confidence they need to thrive under the demands and expectations of living their calling. Her mission is to ensure they feel emotionally prepared to share their unique magic and message with the world. Let's meet Laurie Santos. Hi, Laurie. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because emotional freedom by design is such an intriguing topic for our chat today. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Petra. Thank you so much for having me. I love that you think it's an intriguing topic. Yay!
Yeah, absolutely. I want to know more. So I can't wait to dive in. And for starters, would you like to share a little bit about yourself and your own journey and your own story with our listeners so they can get to know you a little bit and find out a bit about what you do today?
Sure. And thanks for asking. Well, I'm originally from the San Francisco Bay, California. And when I was growing up, I thought I wanted to be a singer. And I was pretty much encouraged or discouraged, I should say, not to do that. So I was encouraged to stay away from that sort of lifestyle. And when it came time for me to go to college, I had no idea really what I wanted to do because deep in my heart, I think I knew what I wanted to do, but wasn't really supported in that way. So I ended up kind of flip-flopping around in college and ultimately got my degree in anthropology. And then, of course, when I got out, I was like, well, what am I going to do with this degree? I haven't a clue. And my father was a probation officer. So I had been working in the area of makeup, working for Estee Lauder and then Matte Cosmetics, just basically to get by and have a job and pay my rent back then in my 20s or my early 20s. And finally, actually, an opening popped up where he worked. And funny enough, when he sent me the job announcement, the degrees that they accepted were anthropology and sociology. And I was shocked. I was gobsmacked and I was excited. It's like, oh my goodness, my degree actually has meaning. So I applied and I did become a probation officer. And that I really fell in love with it. I enjoyed working with people and seeing them in a different way than many of the other officers that I had worked with saw them. A lot of them just kind of saw them as hopeless and helpless and as criminals. But I really saw actually sort of children in adult bodies who had never been motivated or inspired or emotionally supported. And as a result, they didn't really feel sort of safe in the world, and they found communities or other people that made them feel seen, other fellow offenders. And so they entered into that criminal world. they weren't necessarily great at being criminals because they kept getting caught. And of course, they were on my caseload. But by the time that they came to work with me, I thought, this is really fun. Let's see if we can actually help them and get them to see the world in a different way. And that's when I guess I kind of realized I was a coach, but I wouldn't have used that word. And after a few years in probation, I said, well, let me promote and I'll go and work as a federal probation officer. So that's what I did. Very soon after I became a federal probation officer, right after I'd finished my master's in criminal justice, I was reading a magazine. It was Shape magazine, if you knew that, because I know you lived in Canada. Yeah, I had a subscription to it, but I really wasn't reading the subscriptions. One day I went through this pile of my Shape magazines and I saw an article that just kind of opened up right to the middle. And it was called What is Life Coaching? And this was 2002, something like that. And I had no idea what life coaching was back then. It was really new. It was, for me, an unheard of industry. And the whole purpose of the article was to educate people on what it was. So I devoured the article. And at the end of the article, there were all of these coaching schools that had been approved of and accredited by the International Coach Federation. And so I enrolled in one program, finished it, and I was still hungry. I was thirsty for more. So I found a second one and I enrolled in that program. The first one was just on a bridge line. It was like back then when you actually get on a phone and be in a class for 6 months on a phone. The second one was in person, experiential, and it knocked my socks off, blew my mind. And we were tasked with starting our own coaching practice while we were going through the program. And so that's what I did. I started this part-time coaching practice alongside of my full-time federal probation career. And I would say, I think I was doing it at a part-time level for about 3 years, when all of a sudden I just kind of felt like an imposter, like a fraud. All of my clients were quitting their jobs and starting their, dream life as an entrepreneur. And here I was, still a full-time employed officer with a part-time business. And when I woke up to that, I was like, I have to leave. So I did. I finally left. And part of my dream, why I became a coach, was because I wanted to work from my laptop anywhere in the world and travel. And so I finally was able to do that. I got my own coach. I saved up a bunch of money, took in a roommate to help me do so. And then I moved overseas. And part of my continuing education, I studied all these other different modalities. And EFT, emotional freedom technique tapping, is the one I would say that I probably fell in love with the most. And I became an advanced EFT tapping therapist and also a human design guide. So I studied human design for 10 years and I customized my sessions according to people's human design type. So I call it tapping by design or emotional freedom by design, because I blend these two modalities to really help people get the results in a customized way. So I hope that's sort of the nutshell version of my story. There's much more there, but it gives you the gist.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And what a journey. And you working in the criminal justice system. And that is actually, I'm wondering if probation coaching should be something that we should build up, because it could be very, very helpful for people trying to make this adjustment, from incarceration to coming back and living their lives. So I could almost see a niche there for coaching. But wonderful journey. And I'm so glad that you followed your calling and eventually did your own business with that and followed your own dreams, and what has brought you to the Netherlands. And you are working on traveling and working now that you wanted. So that's fantastic. And I love tapping. Tapping is one of those things that is so helpful and with so many different things. But I have never heard of it being combined with human design. So I'm completely intrigued by this. So
I love it.
maybe tell our listeners a little bit more about tapping, and then we'll take a look at human design. So we can maybe break this down a little bit for those listeners who might not be familiar with both of those things. And then let's see if we can put them together and show or demo how you put them together after. So let's start with tapping, and maybe let's talk a little bit about what that is or how it works or what it does.
Yeah, I just will first say I agree with you that I've also never seen human design combined with tapping. And that's why I started combining them just as part of my own personal healing journey. And then I also realized I need to extend this to my clients because it really helps me tailor make each session according to exactly who they are personally. So that's how that started. With respect to tapping and what it is, so it's really called emotional freedom techniques. And it's known as tapping because one of the techniques is tapping. But as EFT therapists, we're trained in a variety of techniques to be able to use on the spot and pull out of our toolbox in the moment with whomever we're working with. So, one of the techniques is tapping, where you're actually tapping on physical points on your body. And the purpose of tapping on these physical points, which are actually acupressure points, is to help your energy flow properly. And what you're basically doing when you're tapping on these points is recalibrating the meridians being these kind of energetic pathways of your chi, if you will, your life force. What happens though, oftentimes, is we have all of these emotions that we kind of tuck away or suppress because, our conditioning or our training and programming says, hey, put your big girl panties on, or don't cry, or don't get angry, don't be sad. And so the more that we hear this external messaging, the more that we sort of suffocate and suppress our emotions. And when that ends up happening, it disrupts your natural meridian flow. And these emotions are energy, of course. They've got to go somewhere. But if you don't feel emotionally safe to process them, then guess what? They stay and they build up. There's an energetic backup that ends up happening. And you end up with this residual energy in your, well, some would say your chakras, others would say your human design centers, others would say your organs. They're all the same. And they end up there. And then when they end up in your organs, which have their own themes, like the liver is associated with anger, for example. Well, guess what? You could end up being an angry person if this ends up being disrupted because it's not being tended to. You're not practicing emotional hygiene. You're not practicing emotional cleansing. So that's what EFT tapping offers you, is the opportunity to keep an ongoing practice, whether you're tapping with a practitioner or you're just tapping also with yourself in between sessions with the practitioner, or you're doing group tapping, for example. It offers you the opportunity for ongoing, regular emotional cleansing. And practicing that emotional hygiene helps you take better decisions and have clearer thinking and really operate from the true essence of you, your authentic self. When you're working with a practitioner, we're trained to look at various releases, certain physical releases. So when I'm watching you and I'm tapping with you, I'm looking for, is there swallowing that's going on? Is the face getting flushed? Where are the eyes going? Are they going up? Are they going to the side? Are they looking down? Does the person appear to be short of breath? Of course, there are standard releases like crying. There could be runny nose, coughing, even burping. And this is just the emotion, the energy leaving the body. And it's really fascinating when I'm working with someone who could be very emotionally backed up. They'll always say, "Oh my God, I feel so much lighter." And it's so fascinating to hear that specific word, because to me it indicates a heaviness that our emotions can have, especially edge emotions being anxiety, fear, disappointment, frustration, etc. There can be a heaviness to them. And if we are not practicing emotional hygiene, then the heavier and heavier and heavier we feel. There's a whole history behind EFT tapping. I can get into that if you'd like, but I'll give you some space to to share anything that you'd like there as well.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing this rundown on EFT. And for exactly that reason is why I love it, because it actually is gentle, non-invasive, but so profound at the same time, where we can address all that emotional hygiene, but also traumas that we've gone through. They tend to kind of resolve as we're clearing out all this emotional stuff that is stuck in there. And I've used it also for physical pain, where it has been quite effective as well. So the versatility of tapping, but also the ease of using it, and the fact that we don't need to re-traumatize ourselves, and really anyone can learn it. It's just a fascinating modality that I love using it. So thank you for sharing that piece of it. And I agree with what you've heard. When I have these really profound EFT sessions, I do feel lighter after. It does feel like a weight has kind of been lifted even off my shoulders. So fascinating experiences aside from the other releases that you were describing. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love how accurate you are. In EFT, we say that we don't have to have the client dive back into a trauma in order to heal it. So we call it sneaking up on the trauma. It's not necessary to relive a trauma in order to have it processed, healed, cleared, and released. So I really love that you've had that experience. And it sounds like whichever EFT practitioners you've worked with, they're doing a great, fantastic job, because that is exactly very crucial, especially when it comes to trauma. Oftentimes people don't want to work through their trauma because they're terrified. They have the impression, they have a story that they have to live it again, that they've got to tell everything all over again. And of course, that is terrorizing and terrifying, and nobody wants to go through that. But with EFT, we don't have to. And it is, just like you said, very gentle and non-invasive. And it can be done either in person or online with a practitioner, or of course, just on yourself. One thing I do want to share is if people are considering exploring EFT, and they do have traumas or they do have griefs or really kind of strong sticking point, I do recommend working with a practitioner first, because they are trained to look at certain things, certain cues, listen for certain words, use specific techniques to sort of needle away, like you said, very gently and softly, something that's not going away. And what we're searching for is the core emotional cause or the core emotional disturbance behind the behavior that's manifesting, perhaps a physical pain, like you just said, or ongoing default behavior where you say, I just know I shouldn't be doing this, but you can't stop for some reason. We call that secondary gain or self-sabotage. For some reason, you're getting something out of doing something that you know doesn't really benefit you, but you don't know why you can't stop. And that's one of the things that's really great when you do work with an EFT practitioner is we're trained to look at that, and we're trained to ask in certain ways, ask certain questions to help you identify that secondary gain and that self-sabotage. And then, of course, use certain emotional freedom techniques along with the tapping to help hopefully release that and reframe it, and then replace it with a more empowering belief and more empowering behavior.
Yeah, beautifully described. And I think there is, like you said, almost a sense of safety in working with a practitioner when you do have traumas that you want to work through, because they can very beautifully hold that space, that container where you can process that within, so that you're not alone and you don't have to do that alone. And you also don't have to go back into all of those things. So, yeah, wonderful way to work on our emotional hygiene and really clearing out those things that might be stuck in there, causing us all sorts of mental, emotional, and physical challenges in our lives, and a lot of limiting beliefs, as you said. There's a lot along those lines as well that we might struggle with. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of EFT tapping. So,
I
hands
love
down,
it.
one of my favorite
Yeah.
modalities. And
Oh,
I'm curious now, like, how does that combine with human design? Because that for me is sort of the secret sauce here that you have.
yeah.
And I'm not familiar too much with human design. So is there maybe a little rundown that you can give us on human design so even I can understand how that works or what it's about, and some of the things that we might use it for? What do we apply that for?
Yeah. Is it just okay if I address something really powerful that you said that's really important? And I'll just try to condense it with respect to first working with a practitioner, especially if there's grief or trauma or really, really big challenge. I have met a lot of people who will just look for EFT tapping online and start doing videos, and will often say, oh my God, and be really, really freaked out because they actually didn't realize that they had a trauma. And the tapping video brought up a trauma. And of course, it's just a little short intro. It's not live, it's pre recorded. And they went into what we call an ab reaction, where they literally are like in that moment, like they're in the trauma all over again. And then, oh gosh, what do you do with that? You're by yourself. and you're just with this tapping video. And so that's why I really want people to be safe with EFT. And EFT is safe, but it's important I recommend with your first experiences, especially if you know there's a trauma there, or you're kind of curious if there is and you don't remember because you dissociated, for example, that you do work with a trained therapist for those reasons. The other thing is, when I am working with my clients, even if they just start with me, I recommend that they tap in between our sessions, on their own, that they keep up the practice, because what we're doing is training them to have an ongoing safe tool. You use that word safe, that they default to in moments of anxiety, high stress, fear, worry, etc. And so it really is important to do the self-tapping as a supplement or as an additional practice along with your tapping therapist. Now, if you're just going in, I want to learn a little bit about EFT tapping for this shoulder. I've got this shoulder pain. I would say it's pretty safe to go ahead and tap along with these pre-recorded videos. There could be, though, an emotional trauma, emotional disturbances associated with that shoulder pain that you might not be aware of. But just to reduce the symptoms in the beginning, I think it's okay with a pre-recorded video. It's when you're getting more into the mental and emotional stuff that I would recommend it. So to the human design. So human design is also an energy system, and it's called the science of differentiation. And according to the human design system, there are these different energy types. And the energy types are known as the manifestor, manifesting generator, projector, and reflector. And each of these energy types has its own aura. And so that aura really guides and informs how we operate in the world. We are an energy type. We have an energetic blueprint. And the human design, what we call body graph, or also known as chart, is this information that you have, like a guide on how you operate in the world and how you specifically are built energetically and how your energy flows in your physical body, literally, and how you respond or react to the other energy types and their auras in the world. And the reason why I feel like human design and EFT blend very nicely together is because human design gives you this energetic blueprint on what you look like, even why you're here, but it doesn't tell you how specifically to live out what we call your signature. So your signature might be success if you're a projector, or peace if you're a manifestor, or satisfaction if you're a generator, for example. It tells you to follow what's called your strategy and authority, but the actual practical application of it, that's what's missing. So the purpose of human design is for you to live as your true self. And there's a whole concept in human design that it takes 7 years to do that, 7 years to get there. It's called deconditioning. And through this 7-year deconditioning process, where you're following your human design strategy and authority, ideally, you're going to get to the magical place of living yourself with a capital S, while releasing your not self behaviors and themes. So, for example, the manifestor has a not self behavior of anger. Generators and manifesting generators have a not self behavior of dissatisfaction or impatience or frustration. Projectors have a not self theme of bitterness, for example, and reflectors have disappointment. So what I do in EFT tapping is I take the language of human design. I look at your chart. I do a whole chart overview and reading. And I get a very, very big understanding of who you are because I'm informed by your human design. And then I create customized tapping scripts and sessions where we work one-on-one together to help you actively decondition those not self-themes based on what your energy type is. So that way I can support you in conditioning yourself in your signature. So if that is success, if that's satisfaction, if that's peace, if that's surprise and delight, if you're a reflector, for example, that's where we're going. That's what we're aiming for. It is the how to get you to live your human design. That's what EFT is. And because it's energy based as well, we are helping your centers, your human design centers, operate at their optimal level. So that way you operate from the wise place of them and live your true design, the essence of you, not the conditioned self. I hope that came across clear, Petra, since you said that you don't know human design so well. So I hope it makes sense for your listeners as well. But if you've got questions, and of course, please let me know, Petra.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a wonderful explanation and I was following along. And so I take it that we can figure out what we are, which type, I guess, we are based on certain things. And then we can make a chart kind of depending on these
Yeah,
variables or something.
you can run your chart for free. There's several different locations that you can run your chart for free. And that is based on your birth time. And it's got to be exact. If you don't have it exact, there's a way to try to get as close to your true design as possible. But for now, I'll just simply say, ideally, you have your exact birth time from your birth certificate or from your mom's mouth, for example, or your guardian's mouth. And you've got your birth location, so birth city, birth state or birth province, and your birth country. And so that's all you need. Yeah. Date of birth, time, and location. And then you can run it for free. And then you'll get your body graph and you'll get a little bit of a rundown or a little bit of a breakdown of what your chart means, who you are from a design standpoint.
That's fascinating. So, yeah, you've piqued my curiosity. I'm going to have to look into this more after the episode.
Yeah, what I should say that human design is a combination of four things. So it's the I Ching, and it's Western astrology, the Hindu chakra system, and the Kabbalah tree of life. And the story goes that in 1987, the creator, the messenger, the developer of human design, his name was actually Robert Allen Krakauer, but he changed it to Ra Uru Hu. He's no longer with us. He passed in 2009. But that he was living in Ibiza and he came home and home was kind of this broken down sort of kind of cement structure, if you will, that had been abandoned. And he noticed light coming out of it. And he was like, what is going on? He had been there alone. And so when he entered, he had this extraordinary, mystical experience that he shares very openly. He fought. He was highly, highly resistant, wanted nothing to do with what he called the voice. He was just hearing loud and clear that there was this voice that was there to guide him and inform him of his next steps essentially in life. And it was an 8-day, 8-night process that he just kept fighting. And ultimately, he was delivering the entire human design system. He was writing these, chart, the whole system out by hand. So the charts, that you're seeing when you run it online, it's like he was literally dictating it, if you will. So yeah, and then finally he caved and he accepted the information. And he went on to share that he later learned that there was a huge, this huge supernova event, and that we had trillions more neutrinos than, which basically are like star messengers or, star communication. And which sounds so wonky, of course, as I'm saying it, but quantum physics has now informed after he brought this information forward that neutrinos do exist. So a lot of the things that, people were like, this guy's a quack. All of this stuff got discovered after he brought the human design system forward. And the reason that I fell in love with human design is because I really saw the accuracy in it. It was probably the first time in my life where everything made sense. The choices I had made up until the point that I learned about human design, the decisions that I had taken, even why growing up, my life was the way that it was with my parents and my upbringing, teachers, and just other people, why people responded to me in certain ways. And it was all there. But there were words for it now. And when I started going through my own deconditioning journey and I started putting what is recommended into practice in my own life, I started to see, whoa, the massive benefits, the massive payoffs, and life got a lot easier. So of course, what was missing were the hows. How can I really sustain this and maintain it? Because that part wasn't in human design. And being a trained practitioner as an EFT therapist, I was like, I've got the how, I've got the way to decondition. And if I apply this in my clients' lives, holy cow, they are going to have, in my opinion, longer lasting results, like just deeply ingrained results. And that is exactly what I've been seeing with my clients, lasting change, lasting transformation.
Thank you for sharing that personal insight. I always find it so interesting because usually when we start practicing something, it's because a personal piece has usually put
Yes.
us there on that path.
You
Thank you
caught
for
me.
sharing
Yes,
that.
totally. It's 100% true. And I think that's true no matter what anybody's work is or profession, but especially of therapists, practitioners, healers, teachers. There's a reason I believe for sure we've all gone in. Podcasters, we've all gone down this road on that personal quest of inner understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, but I'm glad that you put the two together because that certainly gives us now an interesting approach to actually considering the foundation of the human design and the human design chart. And then, like you said, well, how do we implement this? How do we put this into real life? So, wonderful combination that makes so much sense. And I'm so glad that you saw the connection on that. You put those two pieces together to bring this amazing kind of combined modality to your clients. And you mentioned that you may want to show us a brief demo of that as well. So, of course, the listeners can't really see us, but we could describe as we go along. So, would you like to do a short demo of what a session like that would look like?
Yeah, I do. And I'm really excited that you're willing to participate. So I've got your permission up front, which is fantastic. Before we do start, Petra, I am curious. I know you don't know a lot about human design, but do you by chance know your design type?
I think I do. It might be a 6.2. Does that tell you anything?
Yeah, your profile is a 6'2". Yeah. And your
Okay.
energy type, are you a projector?
I think I'm a manifesting generator, if I'm not
Manifesting generator.
wrong, but I can look it up, but that's off the top of my head. So if you want to continue, I will have a really quick look, but I think that's what it is.
Yeah, that's great. So I've got your profile. So we're very close actually. I'm a 6'3". So I know a lot about your six line. And my husband is a 2'5". So he has a two line as well. So I'm very familiar with your two line as well and what's important for the six line and for the two lines. So as you're doing that, I want to ask your age, but I don't want to ask your age. I don't know if you're comfortable with that, but well,
Oh, 100%. I'm 43, so I was born in
okay.
1981.
And okay, great. Because there's a reason I'm asking for that because as a six line, which is that six you told me about, there's a three-stage process. So everybody who is a six line, whether that number comes first or second in the profile, it doesn't matter, goes through a three-stage life. So you're in your second stage right now, which we call on the roof. So that's really important for us to know because those who have a six line who are on the roof are in a deep stage of observation and integrating everything that you learned from stage one. So it really makes sense that you're doing the work that you're doing right now. Yeah, this gives you a great opportunity to, especially with the frame, with the theme of your podcast, of course, being around wellness and healing and helping people with anxiety and those sorts of things and trauma. It really, really makes sense that you're doing the work that you do, especially the six line. Six lines are here to model the way. So you are here to literally live life and try things out and then go out after you've gone through this stage two of integrating all of your learning, all of your healing, integrating all of your processes, and then go out into the world and live that experience and share it with others, what you've learned, what you took away from stage two essentially, and model the way, be the role model. So this is a really important time for you right now, actually being on the roof. And just so you know, Petra's shaking her head. She's nodding her head. She's saying, yes, yes, yes. And I get it because I just came off the roof. So I'm in stage three myself. And stage three happens when people hit the age of 50. So I just got off the roof this year. So I respect what you're going through. I know what you've gone through because it just finished my 20 years on the roof myself. And it's actually part of why I'm on your podcast, for example, and have been kind of just started going on people's podcasts this year. It's been a long time since I've done them. but I did it because I'm embodying this role model thing now, right? And coming down off the roof and going, okay, I'll share everything that I've been learning and studying and training and working in and integrating. So that's what your sixth line has to look forward to in a in a 10-year time or so. So did you find your energy type? Are you in a manifesting generator?
Yeah, I have a chart here. So it does say manifesting generator, and it says 6 to the exemplary human.
Yeah.
And it
That's
says
right.
split definition.
Oh, you are split. Okay.
And authority, emotional, solar plexus. I don't know
That's
if
good for
that
me to
means
know.
anything.
That's very important for me to know. Yes, it is. Okay.
Strongest sense, it says touch.
Oh, I love that you shared that with me. Thank you. Does it give you
And
your motivation?
let me
Oh, in
see.
it.
It has a type. Strategy is responding.
Yeah, wait to respond. Yeah.
And it has an incarnation cross, not self theme, digestion, and the environment. That's all there's
What's your
on here.
incarnation cross?
Left angle cross of separation.
Okay.
35/5 and 22/47.
And then also, can I have your environment?
It says shores, melting
Yeah.
pots, places where multiple different elements or cultures come together.
Yeah. Which makes sense knowing what I know of you, having traveled around the
It
world, living in
does.
different places. And so by the way, shores can be, at the beach. It's literally where land meets water, but it also can be, my husband has the same environment as you, by the way. It can also be if you are like on a porch and you're looking out. A lot of shores people say that they really love that kind of an environment, even a prairie. It could be, when you see like in the South in the United States, those kind of plantation homes with a porch and she's nodding. Yeah.
That
Okay. And
sounds
it's
right.
very, okay, cool. Cool. So manifesting generator, your not self theme is this dissatisfaction or frustration or impatience. And then this emotional solar plexus, that's where you get your authority from. You're here to wait for clarity and you're here to sleep on decisions. So one of the things that is said in human design is that you cannot, as an emotional authority person, trust your emotions in the now because you go through several different waves and it could be several different emotions at the same time. So ideally, somebody who has this authority, you want to wait until you don't, as much as you can, you don't feel triggered anymore. There isn't emotional intensity, which is great for EFT, by the way. I have a lot of people who come to me with emotional authority because they're like, oh my God, I'm itching in my skin. I feel so agitated because they're oftentimes triggered and then get into an emotional wave. So what we want to do today is, if you want to imagine a little situation that frustrates you or that you get impatient about, we can make that our topic. We're going to start with a not self theme.
I think probably maybe this is something I relate to a lot is business and sometimes the time that it takes to develop things. That is because patience is not my strong suit. And so that can be, and it has challenged me a few times this year. I wanted things to move quicker, but I had health challenges and, different things happened and we were dealing with grief as well this year. So this kind of frustration over, I want things to move, but everything takes its time. And it is, that is probably the greatest source of my frustration.
Yeah, and this is spoken like a true manifesting generator. I love it. Oh, it's sweet because manifesting generators are here to be on the move, to multitask, to have multi passions. You're multi hyphenate. You can do many things at the same time. And when life isn't going fast enough, this is what happens with manifesting generators. Like, oh my gosh, and this frustration and impatience. Okay, that's a great starting point.
So yeah, that is very, very manifesting generator, feeling frustrated over things not going fast enough. So where I want to start with is, can you feel the frustration in your body? Can you tell me where you feel it?
I feel it sort of in between my chest and my gut. I guess like at the solar plexus level, kind of in the middle there. Yeah.
we've got to make this up, can you, Petra? Because that's where you get your authority from. You get it from your solar plexus. That's brilliant. What's it feel like when that frustration's happening? If you give it some qualities, some descriptor words.
It's like a burning that just kind of sits there. And the more, I guess, I would let it sit there, the kind of bigger it feels it gets. So whereas at first it's a little point, I could really get myself worked up. But thank goodness we have EFT. But if I let it do its thing, it can feel like it's expanding into my chest and expanding sort of into my belly, I guess you could say. So, but in the beginning, it's usually maybe a golf ball sized kind of burning sensation right around the solar plexus.
And if you were to score, and we'll just do right now, so I realize it might not be the highest score, but if you were to give a score on how strong it is on a 0 to 10 level, 10 is like, oh my God, so strong, 0, not so much, what would you give it?
If I think about sort of the last situation that was really frustrating, I can get this at like a 5.
Yeah. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start tapping at the side of the hand. And I know that you know the tapping points since you shared with me, you've done EFT, but for your listeners, if you get to the fleshy side of your hand, we often call it the karate chop points. If you imagine that you like a kung fu master in front of you and he or she were going to, take their hand and go through a wood or go through bricks or whatnot. That's where we're tapping. You're just going to tap with your opposite hand. It doesn't matter what hand. And you can tap as fast as you'd like or as slowly as you'd like, just back and forth tapping. So then we're going to do what we call a setup statement. So this is to help you bridge the right and the left brain, and it is to address the challenge or the problem, in this case, the not self theme, the emotional piece called frustration. And then on the other side, we want to invite in a possibility or the affirmation of your self theme of peaceful satisfaction as a manifesting generator. So you're going to start repeating after me, Petra, even though I can get really frustrated.
I can get really frustrated.
And I feel this frustration in my solar plexus.
And I feel this frustration in my solar plexus.
It burns.
It burns.
And if I let it go,
it
will expand.
It will expand.
And I'm acknowledging this today.
And it's okay.
And
it's okay.
And I invite in the possibility of peaceful satisfaction anyway. So we're going to do this 2 more times. In old school EFT, we like to do this 3 times. So repeat after me, even though I can get frustrated as a manifesting generator.
And
it makes my solar plexus flare up and burn. I still deeply and completely love, honor, and accept myself anyway. Even though when I'm frustrated, my solar plexus burns. I still accept myself. And I trust that I'm safe. To wait to respond. To sleep on decisions. And to wait for clarity. As my human design authority suggests. Or strategy.
As my human design strategy suggests.
All right. So we're going to go to the top of the head. We're tapping on the top of the head. And we're going to say, this frustration. We're going to go to what we call the eyebrow point, and we're going to tap there. So it's like inside the eyebrows, or you can do right in the center with the third eye. And you're going to say, this frustration. And now as we're here, just hang out here with me, everybody, including Petra, and just notice that frustration that we started with, that emotion. Just tune back into it and just observe it. Just kind of check in with what it's doing. So for Petra, it was burning when we first started. We're now going to go to the side of the eyes. We're tapping on the side of the eyes. And Petra, if you tune into that burning, can you tell me what it's doing now?
It's staying pretty steady there. And it's moving up a little bit. I can feel it a little bit closer, I would say, to sort of moving above my heart chakra just a little bit. But it's pretty much in the same spot, but maybe coming up just a bit.
And when you say coming up, tell me a little bit more about coming up.
It feels like that burning golf ball, if we call it that. It feels like it's actually moving up towards more of the base of my throat. That's kind of what it's like.
That makes sense also for you being a manifesting generator. All manifesting generators have their throat defined in human design. So you guys really have this consistent, constant access to your voice, to expression, articulation, communication, transformation, manifestation, metamorphosis. That's what that throat center stands for. So if you're not addressing, we're still tapping on the side of the eye, everybody. If you're not addressing the frustration and the emotion, makes sense that the energy is traveling from your emotional solar plexus up to that throat because it's like, I need to do something with this. So tell me, is it uncomfortable right now, the golf ball burning?
It's okay. I mean, it's not, I don't feel super balanced with it there, but it's not, let's say, burning a hole, but I can tell it's there.
So. Yeah. And you know what? Go ahead and tap with me under the eye, like on the bony bits of the eye. In EFT, we actually say it's a good thing that you can feel your body, you can feel the energy, you can feel the sensation. So that way in the future, when this pops back up, it's a messenger. It's informing you, whoa, 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 I'm frustrated. Okay, let me wait for a bit of clarity. Let me sleep on some decisions. This is not the time for me to take big decisions, and let me wait to respond so that now you know where that sensation is, how it feels. So originally when we first started, it was at a 5 level. Is it still at a 5?
As it's coming up, it's decreasing a little bit. I think I would give it a 4 at this point because I can still feel it. It's pretty defined, but it's not as strong as it was.
Oh, great. Good. Okay. So we've got it down a point or so after just a little bit of tapping and talking. All right. Now we're going to move to tapping under the nose, above the lip, under the nose. And so is it still the size of a golf ball, that frustration?
Actually, now that you are mentioning it, I think it's smaller. I'm trying to think of what the next size down would be. I'm looking around. Maybe like for those of you in North America, like the size of a quarter kind of size.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, good to know. And I love how you're able to describe the quality of that energetic sensation, that felt sensation. Good job. That's what we do in EFT is, really make it palpable in that sense, make it tangible and understand what's happening in our bodies when we are having these emotions, especially edge emotions, those not self things. All right, we're going to tap now on the chin. And so if this frustration were a color, you could guess what color it might be.
I love colors, and when this frustration comes up, it's usually not a color, and that's even more frustrating because that's usually like a gray or sort of a black or dark brown. So it's not even fun to look at.
But those are colors, so that's okay. So we got a gray or a dark brown.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We're now going to tap on the chest. So how I can describe this for your listeners would be like if you ever saw that show Tarzan, and that's kind of the tapping point, if you will. Just about a centimeter under the collarbone and a little bit like a centimeter over. So just tap there. And you mentioned that you have touch as your cognition, as your strongest sense. So if you could actually touch this frustration and it were a texture, what texture would it be? Would you give it?
You know what it reminds me of the most is when I was growing up in Canada, we had these weird lamps and they had these lightning bolts inside them. And when you put your hand close to them, the lightning bolts would like come towards your hand. I don't know if you guys remember. They were like, lava lamps were really popular. And then those weird lamps that made these like lightning bolts.
Oh, I know now. Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. It's kind of staticky. Is that right?
Yeah. And then it gave you a bit of a shock, like when it came at you, but it didn't hurt, but it made this kind of like shocking feeling, right? That's what this reminds me of whenever this comes up. I feel like if I were to touch it, I would get these lightning shocks from it.
Okay, gotcha. Perfect. I love this.
That's sort of a long-winded explanation.
But super helpful, really helpful. Okay, we're going to go under the arm now. So for us ladies, that would be at the bra strap, and you can tap under both arms if you want, like if you were to give yourself a self-love hug, but simultaneously tap, or just one arm, that's fine. So you're going to repeat after me, Petra, this lightning, shocking, gray frustration.
This lightning, shocking, gray frustration.
All right, join me again at the top of the head and let's do that again. This lightning, shocking, gray frustration.
This lightning, shocking, gray frustration.
All right, that eyebrow point. Now, I want to check back in. It was at the solar plexus, but also going up toward the throat. Is it still there?
I can feel it in my throat now, and I'm going to point for Laurie to see this. I know you guys can't see this, but it's really at the base of my neck, kind of where the soft divot is. That's where I feel it now. But it's smaller. It's definitely not as big anymore. I kind of almost say that when I put my finger on it, it's almost the size of just the tip of my finger.
Okay, so that's a considerable decrease.
Yeah.
All right, join me at the side of the eyes, tapping at the side of the eyes. So I just want to remind you and your listeners that it was a golf ball when we started.
Mm-hmm.
Quarter, and now it's just the size of the tip of the finger. And that's all that our not self themes, our energy, these felt emotions are asking for. They're just asking for attention. They're just asking to be acknowledged and greeted. And that part of you that experiences that frustration just really wants to be heard and to be given a voice in your case, since if you keep pointing to the throat, let's come under the eyes. So let's give that frustration the chance to talk. If that frustration were an actual person and it could talk, what might it say? Feel free to riff.
The first thing that comes to mind is like, when I'm really frustrated and I'm just standing somewhere and I'm like, it's not even a word, but it's this sense of like, why?
That's perfect. Actually, we're going to do that. I'm so glad you did that. Perfect. Perfect. We're going to tap under the nose. Again, that's above the lip. And we're just going to do that. On the chin. Tapping on the chin.
This is actually fun.
It's fun, right? Because you know what happens, so we're tapping on the chest, everybody, is we feel that sensation, right? But then it's like, oh my God, I'm in public or I'm with this person. And then we don't articulate it. We don't express it, out of fear we might be judged or criticized or whatnot. But that's still there. That felt sensation is still in the body. So when we are tapping and we're doing this out loud and you do give it that voice, let's do it again. Just like you said, it feels good.
It does. It feels like we're releasing pieces in there, and the burning is not as strong. I could feel it really quite caustic, like quite almost like a acid there. And it's softening. I feel like if I were to touch it, it wouldn't zap me as violently anymore.
So what kind of a lamp might it be now?
Yeah, it's not quite as soft as a lava lamp, but it's definitely one of those more milder lightning bolt lamps.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay. Let's go under the arm, and that, it was like this gray, brown, black color. If you tune into it now, what color is it?
It looks just like a point, a smaller point. But if I had to give it a color now, it's more of the sort of an electric purple color.
Ooh.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it's purple behind you, your sign behind you for Jōrni, for your podcast name. It's that purple, which I see your face lighting up. I see your huge smile. I see that smile also in your eyes, the twinkle in your eyes, which says to me, that's so important. That's my passion. That has meaning, that purple color. So even though we're going to go now to the top of the head, there was this gray, brown, burning sensation. The frustration was really trying to get your attention. And this is where we're going to wrap up is if it real what's its unmet need? What does the frustration really want from you or want you to know?
I have to say, it feels a little bit like a little child that just wants attention. It just wants to know that it's there and
Yes.
not necessarily come up with a solution because I might not be. But, give me an ice cream or a piece of chocolate or a nice cup of tea and just know that it's there. Let it kind of have its moment, its moment, and just let it have that. That's a bit what it feels
Let it
like.
have fun? Was that what you said?
Well, let it have that moment, of
Let it have that moment. Excuse me.
to just recognize that it's there. Because in a lot of those situations, I don't have an answer or I don't have a solution. But I think if I were to just express that it's there, I think that would already help. I think that's what it's wanting.
Yeah. So let's tap on the top of the head there. And what we're going to say is, even when I get frustrated,
Even when I get frustrated,
I'm safe to remember I'm here.
I'm safe to remember I'm here.
Even when I get frustrated,
Even when I get frustrated,
and choosing to be here.
and choosing to be here.
Even when I get frustrated,
Even when I get frustrated,
I'm choosing peaceful satisfaction
I'm choosing peaceful satisfaction
and presence.
and presence.
All right. You can shake your arms out, give them a little bit of a break. And then what I just want to invite you to do is, if you don't mind, placing your hands on that solar plexus where we first started, and then tuning into how the energy is now. And if it feels best for you to close your eyes, feel free, whatever, tapper's choice. And describe for us what the energy's like now. That could be the size, that could be the temperature, that could be the texture.
I actually feel like I can take a breath now, which was sort of difficult before. And this does happen when I'm frustrated. I feel like I can't breathe properly, or it's difficult to take a full breath. And
Yeah.
I can breathe now freely. And there's no longer this burning sensation. And even the little point is not there anymore. It's kind of feels like it moved from the throat just outward and kind of went into the ether or the universe, whatever you want to call it. I think it moved outwards and I no longer feel it. I don't feel a burning sensation or any kind of anything weighing on it.
Yeah. So when we first started, we were at like a 5. If we were to score it again on that 0 to 10, that frustration, where would you put it?
I don't feel it anymore at all at
Okay,
this
so
point.
0,
So it's a 0.
Okay.
Mhm.
Brilliant. And then what I'm also hearing when you're describing the energy, you don't feel it in the throat anymore, you're saying, and that it's just all outward. It sounds to me, and you tell me if this is correct or not, that your energy is like evenly distributed. That's what my interpretation would be. Does that sound right for you, Petra?
Yeah. It felt disrupted before, almost
Yeah.
blocked, that there was something really pinching it. So something was burning a hole into my energy. But
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't feel like that anymore. I feel quite balanced. I mean, I guess as balanced as we can be. So yeah, but I feel very balanced. And even thinking back to that last time where I was experiencing frustration, I'm not getting riled up again. I'm not getting sort of triggered by that, right? So yeah, I just look at it now and I go, yeah, well, it's one of those days. It passes.
Brilliant. You took me exactly where you took us exactly where I wanted to ask you is if you were to pull up that little moment, is there an intensity there? And you said no. So it sounds like it just wanted to be honored and acknowledged, and we've released and cleared it. And now if that same sort of similar moment would come up, it sounds like it wouldn't take you to the place or the level that it did today, for example. So well done. Great job. I'm proud of you. That's brilliant. Nicely done. Thank you so
I
much.
love that. Thank you for taking us through that. And I hope for the listeners, this was a cool experience as well, because of course they can do their charts online and look up their human design chart. And then they can work with yourself on designing this tapping routine to exactly how you did with my chart right now, to really make that specific to them and to what they're experiencing. So this was an amazing experience. Thank you so much for putting this out on the podcast and having our listeners be part of that.
And thank you for being willing to do it, especially on the spot, because I'm not looking at your chart. I didn't have it. You just, did that literally in the moment. But there are salient points and specific language, like your profile that you gave and the energy type that you are and your personal authority, being an emotional authority, where I was able to go, okay, I can still really customize this for you. If we were working with another energy type, let's say we're working with a manifester, then we would be focusing on anger and peace and freedom and the importance of them informing, which is their strategy, for example. And projectors, we'd be focusing on bitterness and success and learning to wait for the invitation. But it also projectors, there are 5 different personal authority types. So I would be learning, or I'd be knowing which, focusing on their specific authority type. So that's, how we get into the nitty gritty of really customizing it. But that was so fun. Thank you so much for tapping with me and sharing your design with us.
Absolutely. And thank you. This was, like I said, such an amazing experience for me as well, to go through that from the tapping client end rather than a tapping practitioner end. So it's beautiful to experience that with yourself. And I hope the listeners found this very insightful for themselves as well, and can see this connection that you're creating between the EFT tapping and the human design, and how that works together to help us sort different challenges, to help us with our own healing, with our life journey. And so, of course, that all comes back full circle for when we're talking about this on the podcast now. So, yeah, thank you so much for that. And, if this has piqued our listeners' curiosity now and they would like to work with you, do you have programs or services available, or how do you work with clients, and how could our listeners connect with you if they also want to have an experience like we just did?
Yes, and thank you for asking. So the first thing that I do recommend is people can do a complimentary discovery session with me. So we meet for 30 minutes and I ask you to send me your human design chart. And I look that over before we get together. And I have a little small intake form that's kind of human design related as well. And then in that little 30 minutes, you get the chance to try on what I call tapping by design for size. So you can see if we have a rapport, if you feel seen and guided by me, and if you feel safe with me. And if not, then I've got other practitioners that I can recommend you to. But that's the first kind of starting point if you're interested in one-to-one work. If you are interested in one-to-one work, then I have 3 different packages to choose from. But I also recommend a nice kind of safe starting point is doing group EFT tapping, which I offer online. And that is the first Monday of every month. And we meet at 4 p.m. Central European time. So when we're all in the world on daylight savings time at the same time, then that's 10 a.m. Eastern and 7 a.m. Pacific. So yeah, we do that the first Monday every month, and we come together as a group online. It's not recorded for confidentiality and privacy purposes. And then I lead everybody in an online group tapping session, which offers what we call borrowing benefits. So even if you come and you don't say anything and you keep your camera and your microphone off, you can borrow the benefits of the experiences of everybody else who has shared. And oftentimes you find through mirroring and through hearing the experiences of the peers that are on the call, on the group session with you, oh my God, I have that same thing, or I don't have that same thing, but I love that they shared that so vulnerably and I feel safe now. And oftentimes you have a big release too, just by witnessing others. So group tapping is very, very powerful. I do it, by the way, myself with another practitioner every single month, just so that I can practice my own energy hygiene and energy cleansing. So that's something that I offer as well.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing those. And we, of course, will be linking to all of Laurie's offerings in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there for the links on how you can join her, how you can work with her, how you can join the monthly group tapping, which, like she said, would be a really good place to start, especially if you haven't done a lot of tapping before, or you just kind of want to see how it works or what it feels like. Fantastic place to start with that. So we will link to all of that for you. Be sure to check that. And of course, if you end up working with Laurie, let us know. Find me on Instagram and send me a message and let me know how you like that, because I feel like there's a lot of magic that happens when our listeners connect with our guests. And there are some fantastic stories that come from those collaborations and that working together. So if you end up working with Laurie, let me know. I would love to know what your experience was like. And definitely send me a message and tell me what that was like for you, and what kind of transformations and changes you saw in your life following that. And that's it for today. This has been another incredible episode, and I hope our listeners have enjoyed our journey into the emotional freedom by design. That promised to be such an intriguing topic, and it turned out into this amazing episode. So thank you for being here today, Laurie, and sharing all this wisdom with our listeners, with myself, and doing a demo for us on the podcast. I absolutely loved it, and I can't thank you enough for being here today.
Well, Petra, thank you so much. This has been just wonderful. I've enjoyed your energy and your voice and tapping with you. Thank you for the opportunity and the invitation.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. And hopefully we get to do this again. And maybe we have someone else's chart and we see where we can make some changes and try something different. I'm sure there's probably some volunteers whose charts we can use. So yeah, I absolutely look forward to that. And I can't wait to chat with you again and connect with you again, Laurie. Take care.
Count me in. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejorni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.